My name is Jimmy, and I am a caregiver and husband to Heather Bailey. We are doing some videos to talk about our life's experience and what we've learned, and I'm going to share one of those with you today. So, at the end of 2005, we bought a home in Virginia Beach, and we moved in. And around that time, we moved in, and everything was still packed. And Heather had been experiencing some pain in her shoulder blades in her back. So because it got too bad, we went to urgent care, and they did an x-ray there, and this doctor had come in, and she said, everything looks fine, I'm going to give you some antibiotics, and I'm going to send you on your way. So we figured everything's fine, we'll go on our merry way. Took an x-ray, everything looked good. We get home, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, where the urgent care had never actually looked at the x-ray. They had it sent off to look at it, and somebody called Heather to say, hey, where are you? Because your lung has collapsed. She was at work. This girl had been walking around for 2 weeks with a collapsed lung. So they wanted her to come to the ER. Her mother came and got her. I was at work and couldn't be gotten a hold of at the time, and she drove her to the ER where they inflated her lung. It was just at that time when her disease, when the CF really took hold, when we actually saw a decline in health for the first time in a long time, and the seriousness of the disease, where we had known what it was, it started to hit us. And she went through periods of declining health and issues with breathing throughout that point, multiple surgeries to go in and remove bad portions of the lung that were basically leaking air, and at one point required what's called a lobectomy, where they actually removed the upper portion of the lung because her upper right lobe of her lung was so far deteriorated that it wouldn't hold air, so they removed it. During that time, things got rough because we went from being a 2-income household to being a 1-income household, and at one point it got bad, where you had to make a hard decision, and we did. And as bills mounted and the mortgage got harder and harder and harder to maintain, we had to finally make a hard decision and just cut our losses. We didn't have time to sell the home. We didn't have time to do anything. We were going to fail. We were going to sink unless we cut that tie. So we did. We found a 1-bedroom apartment in Norfolk and got out of the house what we could that we could keep. We had to find homes for our pets except for our cat. At the time, our husky was very sick, and we had to make the decision for her at that moment as well, to put her down, and that was beyond a nightmare. And we left the house. Sorry, that was it. We had to do it. Moved into this 1-bedroom apartment in Norfolk, in the Ocean View area of Norfolk, which wasn't always the nicest place, but it gotten around there. So we lived there for a few years after that, 2007, 8, 9, 10, and it did us well. I was working at the time selling pools and hot tubs at a place called Rec Warehouse, where they sell fun for less. But not anymore, because I went out of business. And that was no fun. But I got out in time. So, but I worked there, and it provided, for us to live, and we made some friends there who are family. They're people that we would not be here for. We would not be here now if it were not for them helping us. And you know who you are. So at that point, we lived there and went through the transplant process and went through UVA and spent 2.5 years on a transplant list at UVA, and never got a phone call for a transplant. And then in July of 2010, she was really bad, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. I moved to a store closer to our house, and it was a good thing I did, because on August 12th, she texted me because she couldn't call. She couldn't breathe enough to call. She was on the max amount of oxygen that could be put out, and she had that running through a BiPAP, so it was blowing air constantly into her nose, and even that wasn't enough to make her lungs feel saturated, like she could breathe. She felt like she was drowning, which is what most CF people do, is they feel like they're drowning. And they're young, and you can't tell they're sick most of the time because they all walk around with smiles on their face, because they've dealt with shit in their life, and they're just happy to be alive, which is a huge inspiration for everybody. But at that point, she texted me and said, you know, God, it's bad, can't breathe, come home. So I said, I'm coming, and as I was jumping in the car, I called 911. 911 got to the house. When I pulled up, they were outside. You see these guys, these EMTs and these firemen looking through the window, talking to her through the window, and our dogs, Rusty and Issa, were having no part of anybody coming in the house. I wish they would have just chilled out, but I think they knew that their mama was sick, and the last thing I would be about to do was let some strangers in. But as I pull up, get out and let them in, and basically it's like, for me, go through the front door, put the dogs in the bedroom, get out of the way, and they, boom, came in, put her on a gurney, and pulled her out, put her in the ambulance, and took off to Norfolk. And I followed behind them as fast as I could. Got to the hospital, and within 30-45 minutes of being there, it was decided, you know, if you're gonna make it, we're gonna have to medically induce you into a coma, and we're gonna have to intubate you. So despite her having heard of a lot of her friends being intubated and sedated and never ever coming out, she knew that that was her only chance, and I supported her on that. It's her life. It's my job to support her. As miserable and tough as it may seem, you just suck it up and support somebody. Their life to choose. They get to do what they want. So she made that decision, and before they intubated her, kiss and say I love you and see you later. Never say goodbye. Always say see you later. And yeah, they intubated her, and she was out, and it was about 4 hours before we heard anything in the meantime, because as they were intubating her, she threw up, which is why they tell you never to eat before surgery. She might get sick. That's what happened. And she aspirated, and she threw up and choked down her airway on some vomit, and didn't help. They had to try to clear that out and all that. And then you go back in there to look at her, and you see her just like laid out, tubes in throat, tied up, being breathed for on a machine. It's not what you want to see. But yeah, so don't take that shit for granted. Ever. Don't take people for granted. Thanks for listening.